Dena here. So, one of the things I took away from Undertale was that Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie sounded really interesting, and probably awesome. Fortunately, there are recipes all over the internet. I ended up taking 2 of them and basically did a hybrid. I'll put links to both recipes in the description so you can check them out if you want to. This is actually my second time making this, and I pretty much replicated what I did the first time. Since it was my first time making it, I simplified it a bit and used a pre-made pie crust and ready whip rather than making a pie crust and whipped cream from scratch. I may try that sometime, and if I do, I'll make another video about it, but I wanted to keep it simple for this time. So the ingredients I used here are 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 2 cups of full-fat milk, 1/3 of a cup of butter, 2 tablespoons of flour, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch or cornflour, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And for the crust, I used Keebler graham cracker crust. I actually ended up adding things in the wrong order. The recipe I went by for this part said to add the sugar, flour, cornstarch, and salt, whisk them together, and then slowly pour in the milk. I thought they had forgotten about the butter, so I started melting the butter first and then adding all the dry ingredients and went from there. Turns out that you're supposed to add the butter last, but mine turned out fine, so it probably doesn't matter what order you add stuff. Also, I had the heat on medium. Seems like my stove runs hotter than normal because if I ever follow a recipe exactly for that, it always burns, so I always go down a setting. Like, if it says medium-high, I go with medium. For medium, I go medium-low, etc. While waiting for the butter to melt, I whisked the eggs with a fork. I also added the vanilla to the eggs. That's a trick I learned from Gretchen's Bakery. She does it so she doesn't forget to add the vanilla at the end because it's easy to forget. I think it's a good idea, so I try to do it too. Also, I don't actually have a whisk, so I just used the whisk attachment for my stick blender. Looks kinda goofy, but it works. Anyway, I just stirred until the butter was completely melted and everything was well combined. Then I added the milk a little at a time, stirring it really well between each addition. And at this point, for some reason, I decided to taste it and realized that it was not sweet at all because I forgot to add the brown sugar. Duh. Like I said though, adding stuff out of order doesn't seem to have hurt any. So at this point I just heat and stir until it thickens, and keep an eye on it because for a long time it stays liquid and doesn't look like it's ever going to thicken, but once it starts to thicken, it thickens up really fast. But basically you want it to have the consistency of pudding, otherwise it won't set properly. So once it started to thicken is when I decided to add the eggs. You have to temper them first so you don't end up with scrambled eggs. The first time I made this, I tried to do this but ended up with little white specks in the pie. It didn't affect the texture any, but it doesn't look as pretty. I had a hell of a time getting the eggs to heat up this time. I think I was afraid of adding too much of the batter to the eggs and heating them up too fast. In the end, I got impatient and just started pouring some of the hot batter into the bowl, and apparently that's what I should have done in the first place. Go figure. The batter got really thick to the point where it was almost forming a blob and was pulling away from the sides of the pot slightly, which resulted in a slightly more solid end product, but that's fine. So at this point you just have to pour it into the pie shell, smooth it out a little, and stick it into the fridge to let it set. I'm not sure for how long, I normally just make it the night before. I ended up finding a single little bit of cooked egg, which I fished out, but that was it. So here's the finished product. It turned out perfect. It just needed a bit of Ready Whip. I don't use Cool Whip because there's hardly any dairy in it and it's mostly made from junk oils and I just think that's gross. This pie is delicious. It's not overly sweet despite it being butterscotch flavored, and butterscotch is literally just butter and sugar and normally tends to be very sweet. It's just sweet enough and it's got the perfect amount of cinnamon. You can taste the cinnamon, but it doesn't overwhelm the butterscotch. It's perfect, and of course adding whipped cream makes it even better. It's easy to see why Toriel's family likes it so much. Let me know if you decide to make this, and that is all, my child. Be good, all right?